Every day that passes is a day closer we are to getting to the next sports card spike. Thank God. Those that are prepping for it will be in a prime position to see their portfolios skyrocket, while everyone else will be playing a dangerous game of hot potato. So what I want to do in this video is share with you the trends I'm noticing on some of the most iconic and popular cards out there to see if we can get a feel for when they will be spiking again, as well as discuss the one major factor I feel the upcoming spike will have that is a bit different than what we saw earlier this year and especially in August of last year. So you already know the drill. Welcome back. Now let's get to work. So first of all, I 100% believe that cards will go up in value again, and the fact that cards have dropped so much in the last few months to me is evidence that they will spike again, and that's because the average person is pretty damn easy to understand. The average person looks only 3 feet ahead of them. Whatever is presented to them on TV, they believe and go with. They overspend, and then they panic sell, and then they buy hazmat suits to hunt down toilet paper at Walmart.
I just want one pack. No, not one pack.
Whatever trend is hot at the time, they buy and follow, and then they move on to the next thing that is in, and that's just the average person. But if you're watching this, you're obviously looking for some sort of advanced or more critical way of thinking, which is of course what I'm looking for and doing my best to offer you. So just knowing how lazy and reactionary the masses are, we can use that to our advantage and be more calculated and less reckless. So let's take a quick look to see where some of the most popular cards are right now and see if we could spot where the floor of these cards will be. All right, guys, the first cards I decided to go with are Magic Johnson's rookie card that's shared with Dr. J and Larry Bird in the picture. It's a really cool card in a PSA 9 and PSA 8, and you see the PSA 9 still goes for over $36,000 at one of the lowest recent sales, and it's hard to see where it'll go from here. PSA 8 went from 67 down to 48, so that's still on a a downward trajectory. Next card, Kobe Bryant's Topps and Topps Chrome rookie card in PSA 10. Very popular card, lots of data points here. And you see here, it kind of went back up on the PSA 10 in the last couple sales, or one sale, and then back down. Again, overall, things are going down, may go up briefly, but overall, things are still trending a bit downwards. Next card, I decided to go with Allen Iverson just because I thought of his, but when I looked at his chart, it looked pretty flat, and then the last sale went from $13.95 up to $14.99. We'd need to see a couple more, but that's looking as flat as it gets. Next card is Michael Jordan's rookie card. You got to go with the GOAT. You got to go with the most iconic card out there, PSA 9 and PSA 8. And you see here that the last couple sales, this one actually went back up. So Jordan's latest PSA 9 went up to about $28,000. The PSA 8, if I remove the PSA 9 here, we'll be able to see. So the PSA 8 actually went down from $9,200 now down to $8,000 as the lowest. But if I include the PSA 9, you see that the lowest one here was $18,000, and I'd have to look at that individual sale to see why it was that low. But then the last sale has actually climbed a bit. So we'll see if that is a trend. Next card, and this is an interesting one, is LeBron James's PSA 10 and PSA 9 rookie card. You see, if I show the PSA 9, it is still pretty much going down in a slow way, like, nothing too steep, but it's going down. But the PSA 10 is what's interesting because this one has started to go up. So looking at the last 7 days, let me see, the last 7 days, you see here 12,875, 15,250. So yeah, 15, about, this is $50 more, and then the last one's 16,500. And what's interesting is that Gary Vee actually mentioned this card in a video, in a recent video. So you got to wonder if that is influencing this PSA 10 LeBron James card. All right, next one, Patrick Mahomes. You got to go with Patrick Mahomes, probably the #1 target for the upcoming NFL season. And this is a card I was watching because the last couple sales were going up. So you have 8,500 and then 8,900 and then 9,200, and then this sale just went through, and I'm like, what in the world is this? $5,000. I don't think that's legit because that's way too much of an outlier. And if I take a look at the actual sale here, it says sold for 5,000. You know, the feedback's mostly positive. I just don't know what happened in this sale, if there was like something worked out personally where it's like, well, I'll trade you this card and give you 5,000, or can I pay the rest in cash or something else? I don't know, but you know, regardless, it somehow went through as $5,000, and I would just exclude that from this chart because it just is too much of an outlier. And you see here for the PSA 9, if I go to last 30 days, PSA 9 Mahomes been pretty flat, but then 1,800, 1,899, 2,000. So the latest PSA 9 is back over 2,000 after a couple months where it dipped down to about 1,800 bucks, and you know, yeah, about 1,800. So good to see there. On to Tom Brady. Got to show the GOAT of football. Let me make this big again. And you see the last sale of the PSA 10 did go up from 14.8 up to 16.850. That's going to be a very interesting card to watch, especially as football season approaches. The Bucks are stacked. That'll be very interesting. And then the last, let's go with the last 7 days, see if we have any sales on the 9. I guess just 2, 43.75 over to 44.25. So a little bit of an increase there for Tom Brady, aka my hero, aka my idol. All right, next up, John Elway. I wanted to throw in one classic guy right here. And this is very strange, all these sales that are all over the place over the last 30 days where it's up, down, up, down. So I just think of it as pretty flat overall instead of trying to make sense of all of these sales. Like this one down here is $394 and the one before it was $675. I would have to look at the actual listing and see exactly what's going on to make sense of it. But overall, somewhat flat, you know, flat but crazy. And then for baseball, I don't know a thing about baseball except Ken Griffey Jr.'s iconic for me. I picked 3 of his cards to look at. There's lots of other players I could have looked at, but I didn't want to go over someone that is playing right now, so I just went with Ken. And if you see here, if I remove his upper deck, which this one has gone down a lot over the last couple sales after climbing, but if I remove that from market movers, you see that it has gone down, but then recently, even the last week or so, the last 10 days, it's gone up on both ones. So now $500 for the Donruss after the prior sale was $435, and for the Bowman $285, last sale $355. So again, it's early, but it's something worth looking at because cards have dropped so much. We'll see if that is more of an upwards slope that we now see. So obviously these were just a few cards I chose, and there are thousands of other examples, but I feel like the average card I looked at has followed a very similar trajectory. And so my takeaway is that the floor of the market as a whole is extremely close. You know, obviously anything could happen nationally or globally that would affect this, but considering the upside of sports cards and how the hobby is only going to be more accessible and connected in other countries, plus how we're all going overboard on experiences this summer, since it's the first summer in 2 years that we've actually had the ability to do stuff, I feel like that's a reasonable conclusion. So if we actually are at the floor or really close to it, are we going to see a crazy spike like we saw in the past, or are things going to be different? And when I think back to the frenzy we saw last summer and then again in February, there's going to be a lot of similarities with the next surge, just because people will always react to what they see and hear. So if they hear that sports cards are hot, they will drop what they're doing and go all in without much thought or research. And again, that is the average person. But the one thing that I keep thinking about is how quickly will we see card prices spike? And that's because compared to the start of 2021, and especially last year, we have a lot more people in the hobby with access to the data, and we have much better ways to visually see what's going on with tools like market movers and card ladder. And we also have so many more content creators like myself that can point out when cards are rising and falling. So collectors and investors will be easily notified when some of these major cards have 4 or 5 sales in a row that have gone up in value. So I could easily see someone spot an upward trend, and then that post or video gets shared and then talked about, and then all of a sudden we're in another frenzy. And I also say this because I believe there's a lot of you out there that have just been holding off until you see that flatlining and then trickling up of cards. But if there are 500 investors on the sideline waiting for LeBron's Chrome PSA 10 to bottom out, and then they all notice that the last 4 sales have started trending back up, it could be like sprinters waiting anxiously at the starting line for the race to begin, and then that 5th straight increased sale being like the gun going off, and then everyone rushing out to snag one, which would skyrocket prices very quickly. And of course, if that happens, myself and dozens of other content creators are noticing it and discussing it on our platforms, and then it spreads like wildfire. And the next thing you know, we have cards that have doubled in price in a matter of weeks, even though it took 4 months for those same exact cards to cool off. So I think the moral of the story is that the way we see certain cards and players take off in price when someone with a huge influence like Gary Vee mentions them on a podcast is what could easily happen again, except we won't need a single person with a large audience to spread the flame. Instead, the media side and the data analytics side of the hobby has matured so much in the last 18 months that I believe we could spread our own flame very rapidly and organically. So just remember that most of us are looking at the same information, and once an opportunity or trend is spotted, it's going to be shared quicker than ever before, and the only way to use this to your advantage is to be fully aware of all this. You know, if I said, for example, to look for 3 consecutive sales that have increased in a card before you get in, because that's when the upward trend would be solidified and that's where it'd be going, and then 10,000 people saw that video and did that, then we could easily see a bidding war on that card's next listing, which would then skyrocket the price of the card just for a day, and then perhaps plummet the day after on the next auction. And so we can't use these rules of thumb anymore if everyone is going to be aware of them and applying them. So being on the content creation side of the hobby and having a fascination with marketing and media and human psychology, this is just where my mind tends to shift to. But I want to hear from you. So in the comment section, let me know what you think will happen during the next sports card surge, if you think it'll be different or the same. And if you're not already being notified of new videos, make sure to click that bell icon. I will see you guys next time. Has followed a very similar trajectory